the English service of Ukrainian radio.
This is Ukrainian radio with its one-hour English language broadcast from Kyiv. Welcome to Radio Ukraine International. In this one-hour broadcast, you will hear the information program Ukraine Update, the regular Tuesday feature Global Debate, and the program from the series Famous Ukrainians.
This is Radio Ukraine International with the information program Ukraine Update. I am Tatiana Makatenko, and the studio producer is Lyudmila Sudakova. Ukraine's borders remain unchangeable regardless of Russia's recent actions. President Volodymyr Zelenskyy said this, addressing the nation amid Russia's call to deploy its troops to the occupied territories of the Donbas for a so-called peacekeeping operation. Hours before Zelenskyy's address, Russian President Vladimir Putin ordered the deployment of Russian troops to the Donbas and added that Russia is planning to sign a cooperation agreement with the Russian proxies there. Such a move is widely seen as an annexation of additional Ukrainian territories after 8 years of military occupation. President Volodymyr Zelenskyy comments.
Україна однозначно кваліфікує останні дії Російської Федерації як порушення суверенітету та територіальної цілісності нашої держави.
Ukraine unequivocally qualifies the latest actions of the Russian Federation as a violation of the sovereignty and territorial integrity of our state. All responsibility for the consequences of these decisions rests with Russia's political leadership. Recognition of the independence of the occupied Donetsk and Luhansk regions could mean Russia's unilateral withdrawal from the Minsk agreements and disregard of the decisions in the Normandy format. This undermines all peace efforts and destroys the existing negotiation format. With today's and tomorrow's possible decisions, Russia is legalizing its troops, which have actually been in the occupied areas of the Donbas since 2014. A country that has supported war for 8 years cannot support peace, as it claims. According to President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, Ukraine counts on the clear and effective steps from its international supporters. Prior to his address, Zelenskyy had urgent calls with French President Emmanuel Macron, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, U.S. President Joe Biden, President of the European Council Charles Michel, and UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson, who said Russia's actions were a flagrant violation of the international law and Ukraine's territorial integrity. Ukraine has also initiated an emergency meeting with the Normandy 4 countries, which include Germany, Ukraine, France, and Russia. President Volodymyr Zelenskyy continues.
Від наших партнерів ми очікуємо чітких і дієвих кроків підтримки.
We are counting on clear and effective support measures from our partners. It is very important now to see who is our true friend and partner and who will continue to scare the Russian Federation in words. We are committed to a political and diplomatic settlement and do not give in to any provocations. Our borders are secure. Our territorial defense systems have been established and our partners support us. Under Article 51 of the UN Charter, Ukraine upholds the right to individual and collective self-defense. We clearly distinguish between provocations and an attack by the aggressor's troops. We have the truth behind us, and we will never hide it from you. As soon as we see changes in the situation, as soon as we see increasing risks, you will immediately know about it. We are committed to the path of peace and diplomacy, and we will only follow it. We are on our land. We are not afraid of anything or anyone. We are not guilty of anything or anyone, and we will not give anything to anyone. We are sure of that, because this is not February 2014, but February 22. Another country, another army, one goal: peace. Peace in Ukraine. Glory to Ukraine. said President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. You're tuned to Radio Ukraine International, and we continue our information program, Ukraine Update. Ukraine unequivocally qualifies the recent actions by the Russian Federation as a violation of sovereignty and territorial integrity of our state. Serhiy Kislitsa, Ukraine's ambassador to the United Nations, said on Tuesday. He added that Russia bears full responsibility for the outcomes of its decision to recognize the independence of eastern Ukraine's Russian-occupied Donetsk and Luhansk regions. Addressing an emergency meeting of the UN Security Council, Serhiy Kislitsa said,
"Today the entire membership of the United Nations is under attack by the country that occupied the membership of the Security Council in 1991, bypassing the UN Charter, the country that occupied parts of the territory of Georgia in 2008, the country that occupied parts of Ukraine in 2014. As stated by the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelenskyy, following the urgent meeting of the National Security and Defense Council of Ukraine, the internationally recognized borders of Ukraine have been and will remain unchangeable, regardless of any statements and actions by the Russian Federation. Ukraine unequivocally qualifies the recent actions by the Russian Federation as violation of sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ukraine. The political leadership of the Russian Federation shall bear full responsibility for the outcomes of the decision taken. Recognition of the occupied parts of the Donetsk and Lugansk regions of Ukraine may be considered as unilateral withdrawal by Russia from the Minsk agreements, and well as its disregard of the decisions taken in the framework of the Normandy Accord. This step undermines peaceful efforts and ruins the existing negotiating frameworks. By the decisions adopted today and those that may be adopted tomorrow, Russia legalizes the presence of its troops, which have actually been in the occupied areas of Donbass since 2014. A country that has fueled the war for 8 years is not able to maintain peace as it claims.
According to Serhiy Kislitsa, the internationally recognized borders of Ukraine have been and will remain unchangeable regardless of any statements and actions by the Russian Federation. The ambassador said Ukraine is committed to political, diplomatic settlement and would not succumb to provocations. He condemned Putin's order to deploy additional Russian troops in Ukrainian territories and demanded the immediate and completely verifiable withdrawal of the troops. Ukraine's ambassador to the United Nations, Serhiy Kislitsa, continues.
In conclusion, I would like to reiterate that it remains up to Russia to abandon its long-lasting strategy on Ukraine, based on threat and use of force against the territorial integrity or political independence of my country, and re-engage in what we all have committed to, fundamental principles of peaceful relations enshrined in the UN Charter. We demand from Russia to cancel the decision on recognition and return to the table of negotiations. We condemn the order to deploy additional Russian occupation troops in the territories of Ukraine. We demand immediate and complete verifiable withdrawal of the occupation troops. Dear members of the Security Council, the United Nations is sick. That's a matter of fact. It's been hit by the virus spread by the Kremlin. Will it succumb to this virus? It is in the hands of the membership. Today, the Kremlin copy-pasted word by word the decree on Georgia of 2008. Word by word, copy-pasted. No creativity whatsoever. The copying machine in Kremlin works very well. Who is the next among the members of the United Nations?
Ukraine's ambassador to the United Nations, Serhiy Kislitsa. You're listening to Radio Ukraine's information program, Ukraine Update. Ukraine and the European Union have reached a preliminary deal to conduct a military training mission in Ukraine, Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba said following a meeting with his EU counterparts. The minister stressed that the deployment of the mission would be an important political signal of increasing the EU presence in Ukraine and the beginning of cooperation in the military sector. Ukraine's Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba comments.
We reached an agreement with the EU in principle that the European Union will roll out advisory training military mission in Ukraine. These are not combat forces. This is a new element in the cooperation between Ukraine and the European Union. The details, the main parameters, and the timeline of the rollout still to be discussed. But it's critical that we open this new page in our relations. I also call on EU colleagues to grant Ukraine European perspective. The best strategic decision that the EU can take now to de-escalate this whole improved security situation is to send a clear signal to Russia that Ukraine is part of ours.
The minister also told reporters that the most suitable format for negotiations to resolve the Russia-Ukraine crisis would be a summit of the 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council, plus Ukraine, Germany, and Turkey. The diplomat also said that Ukraine proposes the EU to impose specific sanctions against Russia as soon as possible. Dmytro Kuleba continued.
Well, we expect decisions. There are plenty of decisions that the European Union can make now to send clear messages to Russia that its escalation will not be tolerated and Ukraine will not be left on its own. This includes not only political messaging, political signals, but also some very specific actions like supporting the development of our defense sector, supporting Ukraine's cybersecurity, imposing some of the sanctions. This is the message that I will convey to my colleagues today, that we believe that there are good reasons, good and legitimate reasons to impose at least some of the sanctions now to demonstrate that the European Union is not only talking the talk about sanctions, but also is walking the walk.
Ukraine's Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba. You're listening to Radio Ukraine International, and this is the information program Ukraine Update.